some of the most egregious and important calls we have gotten so far. In one of those calls, while waiting for police to arrive at his house, because Mica and her father were there to pick up her things, because, according to the report, JP had told Mica to come and get her car, so he appears to have pulled a fast one on her. JP told the dispatcher that Mica had emailed the South Carolina Secretary of State, Mark Hammond, to report their patrol officers. JP's 911 call was made on February 25th. At this point, Mica had called the police at least 4 times, trying to get her things back from JP. Every single time, JP had the upper hand because his church now owned their house, muddying the waters enough for law enforcement to declare this a civil issue for the courts. Also, they just, believed whatever he said.
I want her to come back, and I want to have a happy marriage, but she has to take her lithium.
Right.
Because she could kill one of my kids in the middle of the night. Like, she thought she tried to kill the dog one time because she thought it was baby Jesus, she said. She had to drown it in oil.
That must have been scary.
She just emailed Mark Hammond, the Secretary of State, last week. I have the email where she sent an email saying to investigate the 2 police officers that came here a few days before and kicked her out of the house. Like, she does these things when she's mentally ill that aren't normal. I have all the paperwork from the police officers that were here last week and the week before. I have all the notes and everything.
We'll talk about this incident more in the future. But the reason Mica was emailing the Secretary of State is because JP allegedly would not give Mica her newly issued notary embosser. The Secretary of State's office is in charge of certifying notary publics in South Carolina, and Mica had just been certified in January so that she could earn commissions. So Mica was reporting the loss of her embosser. She was understandably at her wit's end at this point. She had filed for divorce in October and was reconciling with JP when she decided enough was enough. As a result of that, in the buildup of stress that she was experiencing, in early February, she got hospitalized against her will. Then, she was discharged from the hospital to find that JP had evicted her from their home and was holding on to her car, her phone, her laptop, wallet, and other items. She had already reported JP for impersonating her through social media, emails, and text messages. Mica worried that JP was going to use her notary embosser to forge her name on documents. Anyway, reporter Beth Braden FOIA'd for emails sent to the Secretary of State that mentioned Mica Miller. And thank you to Mark Hammond and staff because that FOIA came back quickly and without any nonsense, which was really refreshing. We discovered that on February 17th, 2024, Mica had filled out a contact form on the Secretary of State's office website. The address that she listed as hers is actually her sister Sierra's. As for the topic of the message, she wrote, "John Paul Miller, my husband, will not tell me the location of my seal." And by seal, she means the embosser. In the message, she tells the Secretary of State about what happened to her embosser and why. And she says that she had tried to report it as stolen and had asked police to escort her to the marital property to retrieve it to no avail. Here is an excerpt from the letter. By the way, this is a general AI female voice. AI audio is a topic that we are going to get into later because, wow, it is scary. But here is our AI robot, Natalie, reading Mica's email from February 2024.
My soon-to-be ex-husband has been trying to force me into signing a postnup that, after 6 years of marriage and 15 years of being an employee of Solid Rock Ministries, Inc., he's trying to leave me with nothing, and he won't sign divorce papers until I agree to these terms. Because of this, I have reason to believe he may try to use my seal for his gain. Also, I started a charity called Dare to Care Missions and collected donations under the watch of Solid Rock Ministries, Inc., tax-exempt and 501. And after searching for my charity in the public records, I found out that Solid Rock Ministries, Inc. never filed the charity and made it official, and they are sending threats to my family saying they will arrest me because they are claiming I stole $4,000 from my own charity, which I have proof that the only money that has been deposited into the charity bank account was my own funds, and it was only $159 in total. The church is also trying to make some large purchases that I believe to be illegitimate, and that would require a notarization. I am asking that you please put a hold on any document with my seal because I have never used it since the date I received it, and to also investigate the 2 officers that escorted me into my home since I feared for my life around my husband due to past documented gun violence, intimidation, and domestic violence. And they would not even allow me to ask my husband for the location of my notary seal. And they began shouting at me to leave my home and said they would arrest me and kick me out forcefully if I didn't leave immediately, even though I was in my own house, which is marital property.
She signed off with her name and the words, "God bless." So this adds a whole lot of context to what was going on in February. Again, when Mike was in the hospital, JP used that as an opportunity to kick her out of their house. And then he kept her from her stuff. We've talked so many times about that one February 21st report when JP told the police that he and Mica were not separated, that her car was marital property when it was in her name only, and that basically Mica was a crazy person. And the officer just believed him. We keep getting more and more evidence of JP seeming to be able to use the police force like it was his own personal security. And also, more and more evidence of JP not letting go of the emotional leash he had looped around Mica's neck. Not just not letting go, tightening it and yanking it. Remember how he was accused of responding to people as Mica, including allegedly to his own young daughter? According to court documents, about a week or so after that 911 call, he had a full-on conversation with his daughter as Mica on Mica's birthday. It's sick. Remember also how he was monitoring her emails and social media at this time? Well, as JP told the dispatcher, he knew that Mica had sent this email a week earlier. How did he know that? Well, because just like Mica had been telling the police over and over, JP had her laptop and he had her phone. So, in a way, JP is telling on himself in that 911 call. If he saw the message to the Secretary of State's office, it's because he was going into Mica's Gmail account and had seen the Secretary of State's office's response. Kataria Watkins, the director of notaries, had written back and let Mica know that they had made a note in their records about her stolen embosser so that she wouldn't be held accountable for any potentially fraudulent activity involving her notary supplies. And Kataria ended her email by saying that she strongly encouraged Mica to consult with police and an attorney regarding the other matters. Guess what JP did? Guess what the guy who continues to say he didn't do anything wrong did? The guy who says he wasn't abusive toward Mica. The guy who was clearly monitoring Mica's emails. Within minutes of Kataria Watkins' response to Mica, JP forwarded her email to his own account and then sent his own email to the Secretary of State's office on February 20th. Here's David with the full email.
Greetings, Kataria. My name is J.P. Miller. I'm Mica Miller's husband. I have also included our bishop, Charles Randall, on this email. I saw the email that you sent to my wife and just want to assure you that she is in no danger and all is well. She recently left the mental hospital here in MB at South Strand, and since getting out, she has not come home and is still suffering from bipolar and schizophrenia. We are doing all we can to help her, and her seal that she is so worried about is perfectly safe. Thank you, JP.
I mean, the chills I got when I first read that email and the pit that forms in my stomach every time I reread it, it really seems like Mica spent the last few months of her life with JP around every corner. It seems like he was hiding in every shadow, every gigabyte. It seems like he was lurking, ready to start trouble. And In the weeks leading up to Mica's death, it really does seem like his sole focus was on making her life as miserable, as confusing, and as hopeless as possible. J.P. Miller had a metaphorical boot on Mica's throat while yelling at her to get up, and at the very same time telling everyone else in her life, her friends, her family, and every person she sought help from, that Mica was mentally ill, and that is why she was on the ground struggling. It was her mental illness, not the metaphorical boot on her throat. The very next day, after he found out that Mica had messaged the Secretary of State's office and had seen what she had written and intervened with his own email, J.P. Miller went to the Waccamaw Center for Mental Health and began the process of getting the state of South Carolina to declare Mica mentally unsound, to have her institutionalized. That very next day, he was once again weaponizing Mica's mental health and using it to retaliate against her, leveraging her hospital stays as evidence that her own narrative could never be trusted. When in truth, he's the one who seemed out of control. He's the one who seemed like he shouldn't have been trusted.